Some economists reportedly believe President Biden's latest government spending proposal could be a gamble. The American Families Plan would invest nearly $2 trillion in education and affordable child care. That's on top of his $2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal, plus the $1.9 trillion pandemic relief bill that passed in March. According to the Washington Post, the president's plans could be a big win, especially if job options expand for low-income and middle-class Americans. But, quote, there is also a chance his strategy leads to unwanted side effects like higher inflation. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen caused stocks to slide Tuesday when she said interest rates might have to rise in order to prevent the economy from overheating. She later walked back those comments. For more on all of this, let's bring in the Washington Post's economics correspondent, Heather Long. Hi there, Heather. Good to see you again. So why did Secretary Yellen's comments cause such an uproar? And is the White House conceding that inflation is a concern?
That's exactly what people were reading into, is for weeks the White House has been saying inflation isn't a concern, that things are under control, that the benefits of all of this spending and these plans far outweigh the potential negatives like inflation. But Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, basically said what Economics 101 tells you, which is if we run the economy this hot as we're expecting this summer and fall, that we are likely to see prices rise. And indeed, we're already seeing it. Anyone who's tried to do a rental car lately has realized they are paying a lot more money. Of course, home values are just up over 10% in many cities from where they were a year ago. And even things like meat prices of beef and pork, are close to 10% higher than where they were a year ago. And so we're already starting to see these signs of inflation. The question is this going to be long-lasting or just a temporary effect, kind of like what happened with toilet paper at the start of the pandemic, where you couldn't find it for any price, and then after a few weeks, the shelves were restocked and things went back to a more normal situation?
It is such an open question right now, but you called this President Biden's most progressive proposal yet. How does it aim to reverse economic damage from the pandemic, and why does the administration think it is worth the risk?
Well, the main thing here is not only are they trying to reverse the damage of the pandemic, but they're also trying to really change the fundamental structure of the economy. And in particular, in the family plan, this would add 4 more years of education to the typical American. So we would see all 3- and 4-year-olds going to preschool, and we would see free community college, so 2 more years of college and education after high school. We haven't seen this dramatic of an expansion in education in decades in the United States. Similarly, it would make things like paid parental leave standard for 12 weeks, and it would really continue some of the programs we've seen in recent months, like expanded food stamps, some of the tax breaks for working class Americans, and in particular, these payments for parents, the $3,000 a year payment per child per family that earns about $115,000 or less. So put all this together, and what are they trying to do? They're really trying to do 2 things. Number one is get more women working. The United States for a long time has lagged Europe and also Canada and Japan in the number of women working jobs because we have such onerous childcare costs in the United States. And the second thing they're really trying to do is lift people out of poverty, particularly children. And these programs that they're implementing or hope to implement are really a big, big push to reduce child poverty in a dramatic way in the United States.
So the president's plan would tax corporations and the wealthy to pay for these programs. Is there the potential, Heather, that could backfire somehow for the economy?
This is a huge, huge debate. We've seen a bunch of models come out in the last few days, and they're all sort of saying different things. If you took a college economics course, you basically learned that in Economics 101 that if you do impose greater taxes, either on individuals or businesses, traditionally that would tell us that that would slow down the economy. But there's been a lot of rethinking about that. And the White House argument here is that the taxes that they want to raise are specifically specifically on high-income individuals, so families earning at least $400,000 or more, and on America's largest corporations, quite a number of whom pay very little or even nothing in income tax right now at the federal level. And so that's their argument, is this won't hurt the economy, it will actually help, because even though they're raising taxes, they are also making dramatic investments to upgrade infrastructure and making these investments in what they call the care economy, with the hope that we will get more women working, which should boost productivity and should boost the economy overall. So at the moment, many studies are calling this a net positive because of all the money that would be invested, but obviously the details matter, and those are very much going to be debated this summer. Even some Democrats like Joe Manchin of West Virginia are already saying, whoa, 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 these tax increases are too much too fast.
Right. One of the concerns that we've heard about is that it could potentially have a chilling effect on small businesses and small business owners who, might be technically in that wealthier category, but because of the nature of what it is that they do, would be particularly vulnerable to an increase. That's the argument put forth by some. But Heather, what about the significant debt that the United States already has? Because this is being viewed as an investment by the Biden administration, something necessary to pay for now in order to have the return down the road. But this is a nation already in such significant debt. What about that?
It is. That's a very good point, and obviously something that's being debated. It was interesting that President Biden actually spoke to this just a few minutes ago from the White House when he was asked about it, and he specifically said that he does not want to deficit finance it. So he doesn't want to just add $4 trillion on the U.S. credit card to the debt. That's why he is proposing these tax increases. So you have to give him a little credit that they are at least proposing a way to pay for most of this. Now, the analyses, as the various number crunchers are really looking through these plans, I will note that while he's proposing $4 trillion in spending, the revenue increases doesn't quite cover all that in a 10-year period, which is the standard way we look at budgeting. But the White House argues it would pay for entirely in a 15-year period. So I call it a little bit of a hand-wavy math, but they get some credit for at least paying for most of it.
Interesting. Finally, Heather, when you joined us a few weeks ago, we spoke about how some 30 million Americans were still waiting to receive the second round of stimulus checks. Has there been any update?
There has. I'm happy to say that they have made a real effort to get quite a few of these payments out the door. Just today, the White House announced that 164 million Americans have received these payments now. It's a little bit hard to reconcile how many people are still waiting, because some of that 164 includes people who are getting a second payment as the IRS is processing their tax returns and realizing that some people maybe had a child recently and should be getting a little bit more money in these sorts of situations. What I would say is we are much, much further along, and we're probably down to just a few million who are still waiting. The biggest population still waiting is people who are very low income, including homeless people, who the Internal Revenue Service does not have their information on file because maybe they don't normally file a tax return. To anyone watching, if you or your friends are in this situation, please, please go to irs.gov and fill out a 2020 tax return. You are still eligible for the stimulus payment, and if the IRS does get your information, they will send out another payment.
It's a really important message for some Americans who might not even realize that they are still eligible at this point. Heather Long, Heather, always good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.